Welcome to How to Thrive as an Independent Consultant. This program is a collaboration between Walden University's Career Planning and Development Department and the Walden Alumni Ambassador Network. We thank you again for joining us. Before we formally introduce our panelists, I'd like to review some instructions for navigating and participating in this session. Audio is muted and video sharing is not available for participants. The chat is available throughout this session. Enter your questions for the panelists in the Q&A section, and we will share your questions as time allows. Access the handout section for a PDF of the presentation and download links and resources. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and is available on demand through the same link you used to register for the session. Once the session concludes, you will be prompted to complete the webinar survey. We would love to hear your feedback. Now, I'd like to hand it over to Dina Berggren, Manager of Walden's Career Planning and Development Department, to introduce our panel and our wonderful topic.
Thank you, Kayla, and hello, everyone. We have a very exciting program planned for you here today, and thank you all for joining us. If you're interested in becoming an independent consultant, growing your existing consulting business, or simply looking to learn more about opportunities in consulting, then this program is definitely for you. And we've brought together an incredibly talented and passionate panel of Walden Alumni Ambassadors. The panel has come together for the purpose of sharing their broad consulting expertise and unique perspectives with all of us. And I would like to start by introducing you to our three Walden Alumni Ambassador panelists, Dr. Mike Smith, Dr. Georgine Trinkle, and Dr. David Doan. And so let's start with Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith is the founder and president of Smith Research and Development, LLC, and he is a global leader in executive coaching who has presented to C-suite, corporate executives, military leaders, college and university faculty and administrators, and emerging leaders in multiple countries across the world. He also served 26 years in the U.S. Air Force, during which time he held numerous leadership positions. And at the height of his military career, Dr. Smith was selected to serve as the first sergeant of the very elite USAF Thunderbirds Air Demonstration Squadron, where he traveled around the world representing the men and women of the Air Force through air shows, community visits, and speaking at events. And after retiring from active duty, he transitioned into the civilian sector, where he became a corporate leader in a Berkshire Hathaway energy company working for Warren Buffett and Greg Abel. And in that role, he provided leadership, mentorship, and guidance to company employees at all levels, including senior corporate leaders. Dr. Smith was also recently selected for the Top Global Executive Leadership Coach of the Year award by the International Association of Top Professionals. And our next panelist is Dr. Georgine Trinkle, who is the founder and owner of Trink Consulting. She has dedicated her life to creating a world where community resources are abundant, poverty is eliminated, and grant dollars are plentiful. And Dr. Trinkle holds several degrees in her field of expertise, including a doctorate in business administration, and she possesses decades of nonprofit leadership experience. Founded in 2018, Trink Consulting brings a unique skill set of training and technical assistance focused on grant writing, strategic planning, and problem-solving skills to the nonprofit and government sectors. And Dr. Trinkle frequently teaches grant writing and through the J. Harris Police Training Academy, specializes in law enforcement grant training. Amongst her many accolades, she has received the Humanitarian of the Year Award, the Diversity Partnership Award, the Fresh Talk Award, and the 2024 and to 2025 Who's Who in America recognition. And next, we are honored to introduce Dr. David Doan. He is a healthcare technology and business transformation leader with 30 plus years of clinical, business, and operations experience, over 20 years of healthcare technology consulting experience, and 10 years of DEI and health equity experience. He specializes in designing technology-driven solutions for payers, providers, and health innovators, leveraging AI, machine learning, and advanced analytics to optimize career management, streamline operations, and improve medical expense and healthcare outcomes. As a director, consultant partner at Kyndryl, he partners with C-suite, technology, business, and HR leaders to define strategy, to orchestrate complex solution delivery, and build referenceable customer relationships. Known as a consultative, trust-based advisor, Dr. Doan unites cross-functional teams to drive commercial growth, customer success, and talent development. He also champions the Kyndryl Inclusion Network. He has a degree in nursing and psychology and a master's in health services administration, an MBA and a PhD in health services, and also earned several industry certifications. And he holds many leadership roles, including president of PMI Los Angeles, president of the Pride Bands Alliance, and program director of the Asian and Pacific Islander Caucus for Health, which is part of the American Public Health Association. So, as you can see here, we truly have an exceptional panel with us today. With these introductions, let's begin with our first question to the panel. Could you tell us about your consulting background, including the services you provide, specialty areas, and clients who you work with? Dr. Smith, I would like to hand it over to you first to get us started.
Thank you very much, Dina, and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Yeah, so my consulting background is really with mostly mid-sized businesses, some startups and some Fortune 500, 100 companies, but the sweet spot for me is really mid-sized businesses. And the services I provide is I work with both C-suite senior leaders for one-on-one coaching and for leadership development, as well as do organizational consulting specifically around cultural transformation within the organization. And I do that through one-on-one coaching, team coaching, speaking, training, which all fall under the umbrella of consulting. So, Dina?
Wonderful. Thank you for telling us a little bit about your background. And Dr. Trinkle, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I specialize in working with nonprofit organizations and working with government entities, really focusing on the opportunities to improve community conditions, to impact poverty. That's really low-income communities is really one of my areas of expertise. So working on governance issues, working on nonprofit management, working on strengthening responses in the community. Those are some of the specialty areas that I really focus on, as well as working with state and national partners to impact poverty issues.
Thank you, Dr. Trinkle. And Dr. Doan, would you like to share your background?
Absolutely. Greetings, everyone. Delighted that all of you are able to join us. And I'm just so delighted to share the kind of the virtual floor or stage with the fine panelists here. As you heard in the introduction, I've been in kind of healthcare for 30 plus years as a registered nurse, but also moved into consulting about 20 years ago. So the consulting engagement that I do day to day for a consulting firm is definitely deeply in healthcare technology consultant. But I also have a passion for other things in addition to that specialties, and it's really around all things related to inclusion, diversity. I know that we are in need of being careful how we word this, but that's really what I focus on. And also to empower employers and organizations on kind of the inclusion and culture strategy, the budget around that. And then part of the kind of employee engagement, most organizations do have either an employee resource group or a business resource group or ERG or BRGs, and how could they actually consider starting a new BRG or ERG, but also if they do have one in place or more than one in place, is to go through kind of the maturation level of how to actually grow that BRG or ERG, but also thrive. So all of that is wrapped around also sometime I work directly with clients that maybe have a health equity lens to that. So there's relevance in that kind of philosophy and applications and philosophy into kind of the area of data analytics and health equities as well. So that's a little bit of what I do in consulting.
Thank you, Dr. Doan, and thank you, panelists. Your work really spans many different areas, including business and executive coaching, grant writing, healthcare technology, and also you have so many multiple interest areas as well. Also, your work extends into corporate and nonprofit and government sectors. So it's wonderful to have such a wide range of interest and also expertise with us here today. And now let's move on to our second question, which is, how did you get started as an independent consultant? So Dr. Smith, would you like to begin?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much. So for me personally, this one was kind of one that I struggled and fought against for a little bit. I had a corporate job, as you know, in Berkshire Hathaway Energy, was a senior leader. So I had the nice desk, the nice title, the steady paycheck, the benefits. But the longer I stayed there, about the 10-year mark. So imagine 10 years in corporate America, right? So I was in my groove, in a routine. One day I was at my desk and I just felt internally, right? Just something wasn't right anymore. I didn't feel that I was delivering the impact, making the difference, and providing the value that I was truly called to do. So it started internally where I just felt that thing that wasn't aligned anymore with who I was called to be. But I fought against it for quite a few months, to the point where it just drove me crazy, where I came home and asked my wife if she would be okay with me walking away from that job again, with the title, the desk, the paycheck. And after 5 nights of sleeping on the couch, no, she didn't make me sleep. But after talking with her and talking with some mentors, I just kind of made the decision to leave corporate and start my own gig. And I landed on where most of my background was, right? Leadership and culture, two of the things that can really determine success and failure within an organization. So I just kind of just went out and went after it. And that's my story. So thanks, Dina.
Dr. Smith, it sounds like you really found your calling and pursued your passion. And that wasn't very easy at the beginning. So thank you for sharing that. And Dr. Trinkle, how did you launch Trink Consulting?
I had a very unplanned path into the consultant world. And I think that's one of the wonderful things, sharing with the panelists today, is there are all different pathways into being a consultant. And I had worked for a nonprofit for a very long time, and I was feeling claustrophobic. So I had a lot of vacations stacked up, and I decided to resign and just take a breath. I just wanted a breath. Hadn't had a uninterrupted vacation in such a long time. And on the first day of being unemployed, I had a call from a group that I had started 5 years prior. That was a result of an agency that had gone through a fraud situation. And that's one of my specialized areas besides grant writing is minimizing fraud. And so they approached me. They had a staffing crisis, and I did not want to make any kind of long-term commitment. I just wanted some space to grow and to be able to add some knowledge. And so I agreed to do it temporarily. They're still my client today. And by the end of the week, I had 3 more people in my network that had called to say, I've heard you're doing consulting. And so I stepped onto the path, and then the road appeared before me. And that's, I think, a little bit because of the flexibility in being a consultant, but also the importance of a network, people that I had worked with and who knew me wanted me to be able to continue to add value to their work. And I, would just say about the Walden network, if you don't have a network yet, just step in, lean into it, because there are so many wonderful resources. Both of my colleagues today had provided blogs. I know you're going to talk about some of the other resources there. So find a community if you don't have one, and lean into it. And consulting is just, you don't always know the pathway, but once you get started, it will certainly appear.
Thank you, Dr. Trinkle. I know that sometimes career transitions or crossroads can lead to trying out consulting work, getting one toe in to see what is it like. Is it going to be a good fit, or just following your arrow, really following that passion or mission, so to speak. And Dr. Doan, what helped launch your consulting career?
Yes, let me offer kind of another flavor. I think Dr. Trinkle has alluded to the fact that there's a lot of creativity and a lot of variety in consulting. I think that having a brand in whatever you do, whatever your talent and expertise is, sooner or later, people will recognize kind of your contribution to the field. So I definitely have credentialized myself in healthcare. So I have done a lot of paid work relating to healthcare. And I felt like that was great, but I don't want to do it full time. So I continue to do that as my day-to-day job. But what's really, it just happened to be something that I also am passionate about at work is in order for me to feel fulfilled in any role at any employer, is that I want to also give back to the employer. And in consulting, or at least the firms that I have worked, as leaders, as you matriculate into the organization, we are encouraged to embrace what we call +1. And +1s are things that you do that are not directly billable or chargeable to an account or to a WB. Is more of what can you do as a leader. So I've always felt the need to really elevate the voice of a marginalized community. And I started to lead employee or business resource groups. And then I definitely will work with executive sponsor. Then I understand kind of the internal challenges as far as securing funding. And then I realized there's a lot of opportunities of even putting a strategy together. Then I move on into more of like, how do I actually train someone to be an inclusive leader? So in all of that, I'm always one of those people that if I have a knowledge gap, I am going to address it. So I got certified to be able to teach inclusive leadership and do consultant work. So I did invest in a lot of money. It was relatively some money to be able to get those credentials. And then that allowed me to say, not only am I doing it at employer X where I work, when leading a team and providing training, but I also have the credential to teach and actually do consulting work. So I kind of venture out, and a lot of it is word of mouth. And once you do a great job, you use that as maybe like your testimonials, and the relationship that Dr. Trinko actually alluded to, and so on and so on. So I just kind of wanted to keep it as something that is more of a balance for me. So I don't want to do it full time. I choose to do it whether it's 30% of my time, and it's really augmenting my day-to-day job to address some of the perhaps questions that you all have about the variability in just like what I call the pipeline of your clients and so on. So that's what I think my journey is just building a brand, getting credential, doing great work, word of mouth, and then it just comes and comes. And I actually love what I call most of the things I do are not that intensive as far as leading strategy with organization, which I have done, where you talk to leaders in HR in the space of DEI. But a lot of time you can get paid by just doing what I call storytelling. I have a very interesting story, some things were traumatic, some things are not great, some things were unique. And I think I realized that became something that people wanted to listen to, and really what is the message? So naturally, when you work in consulting, one of the skills in consulting is your ability to tell a story. So I think embracing all of your talents, perhaps that's where you might want to start, is something that you might want to consider doing full time.
Thank you, Dr. Doan. I really like that concept of a +1, pursue something beyond your regular work role, just something that you're really passionate about, and building that into your brand. So thank you for sharing that. And next, we're going to go on to our next question for the panelists, starting with Dr. Smith. Based on your experience, what are the benefits and challenges of working as an independent consultant?
Thank you, Dina. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the benefits and challenges of working as a consultant. So one of the benefits that I found probably the most important, and Dr. Doan just alluded to this, was being able to truly deliver my message and my story and relate it to whatever the client's experiencing or whatever they're going through, right? Genuine, authentic, vulnerable, and relatable, right? So having that real world experience coupled with your expertise really allows you to step into who you're called to be. And when you can talk about your message and bring that value that's authentic, people can tell, they can feel it, right? It goes beyond just sitting in a class and listening to someone deliver content, right? It's a feeling and they emotionally connect to it. So another benefit would also be the flexibility that comes with being a consultant. So the flexibility of being able to choose your clients, choose where you work, the amount of work you do, your hours, and all those kinds of things that you don't have the opportunity to do in, corporate America or the military. So one of the challenges, though, is kind of tied to one of the benefits, right? So being able to set your own schedule and those kind of things also come with the upfront work of getting clients, right? Even, we talked about this earlier, even with all my years in the military and all of the certifications and being a corporate leader in Berkshire Hathaway and my PhD, even with all that under my belt, I can't tell you how many pro bono speaking events and mini workshops that I did up front just to even get people to really hear my message and my story and see the value that I could pour into them and their organizations. So that was probably my biggest challenge. So along with that mindset of continual resiliency, consistency, and then also making sure you have enough financial support to carry yourself over while you're building is probably the biggest benefits and challenges that I experienced. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Absolutely. There's so many pros and cons, but having that flexibility and being ready for fluctuations in income as well. And Dr. Trinkle, do you have some advice to add to Dr. Smith's?
Yes, certainly. I would say that being able to love what you do is something that is really one of the main benefits. And I think the freedom that was mentioned is something that really resonates with me, where you're really intentional about how you're fulfilling your own opportunities and how you're being intentional about the career path that you want, how you want to impact and impart wisdom in the community. I chose nonprofit organizations because I want agencies to be able to meet their mission, to be able to really change some of the societal issues in a real way. So, as a consultant, you can choose the kind of work that you want to do. And I think that there's such a benefit and a value of that. When you work in an organization, sometimes you think you don't need that outside perspective, but you could be in the weeds, and now you're able to offer an entirely different perspective to someone who may be struggling, an organization that could be on the brink. And I think that is just some of the many benefits to being a consultant. Challenging for me, I chose a model in my consultant business that I did not want employees. So I think there's always a challenge. And I need some emoticons for anyone who's in the nonprofit or government field or who does mission driven work here. So, one of the challenges I think when you're a sole consultant is to make sure that you're not too isolated. So, a way to address that is to, oh, right, there we go. We're showing some love here for the nonprofit industry. You want to be able to connect with other nonprofit organizations, other resources. We talked about the Walden community, and that's something to really wrap your arms around. So to make sure that you're connected with other groups, that would be a challenge if you're on your own as a consultant. That can be a little bit scary, and you're going in for that outside view. So you may seem that you're a lone entity. So just being able to use that challenge as an opportunity to build your own network.
Thank you, Dr. Trinkle. And even joining professional associations in your field can help you get connected, especially if you're just starting out joining, building your network. So loving what you do. I love that you mentioned that as well, because consulting allows you to pursue your passions. Absolutely. And be authentic. That was mentioned as well. And Dr. Doan, would you like to share your advice with us?
Yeah, so it will be additive, of course, which I just love what I'm learning. I would say, to summarize before I move on to my version of it, is the benefits are definitely being heard here as far as like autonomy and alignment and really being able to choose mission aligned work. I would say another benefit is decision can be made very quickly. That could be a good or a scary thing. There's no really bureaucracy, whether you have a team of folks or not. So things move very quickly. You can actually remove some of those administrative kind of bureaucracy, if you like. But that comes with accountability as well. And you can actually flex your schedule to kind of gain certain economic goals if you have, if that is something that's important to you. I do wanted to just give the option of considering other challenges that, in addition to what I call pipeline variability, is you have to really be comfortable with wearing multiple hats. Now, I have a rich educational and work experience, so I'm comfortable with certain aspects like financial acumen, being able to really think through your messaging and your marketing and communications. And you may have to either you yourself do it or outsource, you even just putting your website together. So you have to balance is what I call wearing multiple hats to keep the business sustaining. And your brand needs to be fresh, and you have to also allocate time to everyone who said, we being available in the community and making connections to various organizations, nonprofit, or just going to different in-person networking events. So that all that work, you are wearing all of that work. There's not a lot of people that you can allocate to. I also think that is a balance between also committing to some work, because there's a lot of prep work that you need to do. So you always have to definitely look at the pipeline, but also be able to understand what you can commit to and your capacity. I would say another challenge is scope discipline. How about that? I have my project management professional certification, and I say that all of us are nice people, I'm pretty sure, and all of us are probably agreeable people. When it comes to business, you have to feel comfortable in really clarifying scope and be able to communicate effectively and clearly of what your value is. So it's very easy when you're a small business owner, if you will, to actually do more so you can secure more work, but that comes at a cost, and that's a pun intended. So you might want to be able to feel comfortable about that. So I think that's important to appreciate.
Thank you, Dr. Doan. Yes, communicating value and standing out from others and building that reputation or brand. All great advice. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing these valuable insights. But before we open it up for audience questions, I know everyone's waiting for that, to ask questions to our panelists. Let's go on to our final question. What advice would you offer to someone who is thinking about starting their own consulting business? Dr. Smith, what would you recommend?
So probably the best piece of advice that I can personally give that has served me well, and you all are doing it right now, right, by being a student, but just having a mindset of continual learning, right? So always keeping up with whatever industry you're in, whatever demographic you're serving, or, industry or geographical location, just always staying in that mindset of continual learning so you can stay relevant and remain a thought leader that will separate you and differentiate you within whatever type of work you do. One of the quotes that I love is the depth of your preparation determines the height of your performance, right? So the more you prepare, the more you take notice of things that are going on in the business world and in your local area and in the companies of the customers that you serve. That's going to give you a strategic advantage and an edge by being able to give insight on the front end to some of the things they might be experiencing. Like for me, leadership and culture, two sides of the same coin that are really, really big right now. My work is actually increasing specifically around the organizational culture piece, post-COVID. We're several years past that now, but there's still some leftovers from that where organizations are still trying to figure out fit and alignment and belief and buy-in and belonging. So again, I think the best piece of advice I could offer is just staying in that mindset of continual learning, and then not be afraid to step out with courage with what you know and who you are. So Dina?
That's great advice. Thank you, Dr. Smith. And Dr. Trinkle, would you like to add to that as well?
Certainly. I think starting a consulting business does require some thought. Maybe not every way into that is the way that I started, just unplanned, a little unplanned. So I do think that researching the business model that you want to do, and you're running a small business, so you need to think those things through, from business planning to budgeting to tracking your time. All of the details of that really are important. And I would also say just researching the legal pieces of it. There are tax consequences and practical matters that really need to be addressed and thought through. There needs to be a plan for that. If that's a resource you're doing in-house or outsourcing, those are really important things to stay on track. And I would also say that think about your area of expertise, your knowledge base. If we have any doctoral students that are participating today, that gap, the donut hole that we're always thinking about to be able to focus on an area for a doctoral study. You want something that, as our professors told us at Walden University, something that you will never get tired of, something that you will love tirelessly, with unbounded passion. So those are the kinds of things you should think about before you start in an intentional way. Or you could just drop into it as I did and figure it out. But I think the intentional path and being very thoughtful in the approach for long term is important. So I think those are some of the advice that I would offer. And I would also offer to talk to other consultants. I'm sure my colleagues share their knowledge and their experiences freely, as with tonight's panel. So find other people that are doing consulting work in the area that you want to step into and talk to them. Always our resources around us are so important and helpful. Business groups you mentioned, the Chamber of Commerce's, all of those great mentoring and networking places, and starting with Walden University and the many career planning resources that you're able to offer.
Thank you, Dr. Trinkle. I think it's so important to find mentors, find advocates, find other people who can give advice, people who have done it, who have been there, and can make the process easier if you're just starting out. And Dr. Doan, would you like to share your advice for Walden students and graduates?
Of course, absolutely. I would start with a few things before you even get into consulting. I do want to just make sure that you all take the time to be reflective, meaning that clarify why you might want to have your own business and really identify and really be honest with what's the niche and what's the outcome that you expect to get out, just because you wanted to set expectations. Otherwise, if you don't know where you're heading, you don't know what success look like. And then once you're in it, I really think that I'm going to go back to what I've shared. Maybe it's a term that I use a lot, is personal brand. Who are you and what are you offering to the world? And part of that is really your value differentiator, because I'm pretty sure lots of people can do X, whatever it is that you're thinking. That discipline, I think, is going to help you in the long run. I think people already share about master the art of networking. It's not always comfortable. It's like not just networking like who and how many you know as far as people, but like being very intentional and think about what's in it for them too. So that way that kind of dialogue doesn't come from a place where people feel like is not as genuine as can be possible. But at the same time, building trust-based relationship is important, and ask for help. People are willing to help promote you if you are good with cataloging your testimonies, because that is so powerful. Just a quotation here and there. And I would say, if I know I'm long-winded, I need to be, I would say price based on outcomes instead of price based on effort. Because sometimes it's not really the same. If you want to really demonstrate that what you can do to transform, or whatever the verb that you wanted to use, if you do a great job with X and there are great tangible quantitative outcome, sometimes you don't have to put that much effort. It's just that something that is just that je ne sais quoi or very special about you. I think that will be great. And I would say lastly, don't ever feel like you are comfortable when you are being complacent. There's always something that you can do better. So if you're one of those kind of like lifelong learner, which Dr. Smith has mentioned earlier, I think that's what positioned for success. But at the same time, be kind to yourself, because you can ruminate and really just have mental illness, if you will. And I jokingly say that, but you can work yourself to the ground. So there's a balance between not being complacent, but also give yourself some grace, because you could actually work 24 hours a day. So I hope that helps.
Absolutely, Dr. Doan, really focusing on that value for others, but also being intentional and knowing what's important to you, right? Because you need to know who you are to be able to help others and show that value through tangible outcomes. And with that, we now would like to open it up for any questions from our audience. And Kayla, do we have any questions that came in for our panelists?
Yes, we do. We have some great questions. I'll start off with our first question, and it's specifically to you, Dr. Trinkle. How has your leadership philosophy evolved through your experiences in nonprofit and philanthropic organizations, and how does that inform your current work?
That's such a wonderful question. So, one of the things that has evolved is the ability to understand a little bit more about the knowledge base that's needed from governance and from board members who are actually leading the nonprofit organizations. So, understanding greater focus in that area than I've had before, and also understanding the funder piece, working with a lot of people who are able to invest in nonprofit organizations, understanding from a different side what the outcomes and the value may be. And it may be solving issues such as homelessness that may be very unpopular, and still the funder is willing to advocate and to seek value in helping another person. And so I think that has evolved, understanding that we do need more knowledge, we need more advocacy, and we need to have greater voices. And sometimes leadership that is public may not be able to fill that role. So using the consultant piece and improving the knowledge of board members so that they can be advocates and amplify for the vulnerable populations. Dr. Doan shared some information with diversity, equity, and inclusion and the vulnerable people in society. So I think that my views have evolved to understand how important it is for people to understand from the nonprofit perspective and from a board member perspective the role of advocacy. So I hope that answered your question, and I do appreciate the interest in the nonprofit fields.
Excellent. Our next question is for all of you. Did either of you believe in partnerships in the early phase of your consultant start?
Yeah, Kayla, if I can, I'll go ahead and lead off if you don't mind.
I can jump in on that. So because I chose a model that was a sole proprietorship, small business, I do in the beginning and even now, I work with larger consulting firms so that I have some partnerships, some different ideas, and ability to collaborate. I think perhaps because my background is in the nonprofit field, I just cannot work alone. I need to leverage the resources around me. So I think it's a wonderful way to be able to achieve things together and collaborate.
Dr. Mike, would you like to add?
Yeah, so I was just going to kind of echo that same thing. When I first started out, I did do some partnering through workshops and seminars, not only to get exposure and experience from a different perspective of someone who had been doing it for a while. So I was kind of getting the mentorship and actually delivering the workshops at the same time. So a partnership in the beginning, I think, is really good for several reasons. Like Dr. Trinkle mentioned, not being by yourself, right? Just doing it to get your feet wet, to see someone else do it, which then also gives you the courage that you can do it. So that's what I would add.
Dr. Doan, would you like to share as well?
Sure. Let me just, if I were to have a conversation with the person who asked the question, I would ask the question of how do you define partnership? I want to caution a little bit here. Partnership to me in the business world can be a legal arrangement. So if it's not that, then let me just comment on that. Because let me just say, if it is that, you do need to understand the terms and what this partnership look like from a legal but also financial arrangement. If you are just saying, do you like to partner with someone? And I think Dr. Smith alluded to like someone who is a coach or a mentor or someone who would support you. I'm an advocate for that naturally. That makes sense. I do want to make sure the definition or intent of that question. I tend to not get myself into a lot of arrangement in the beginning, just because I need to figure this out myself. Unless you co-create together, co-form an LLC, whatever it is that you wanted to do together, that's a different story. I always lean on people who have done it and paid the path. I also want to offer one other suggestions when I think about the word partnership, and this is my opinion only, okay? I like to have synergy with people. There's no one consulting firm can deliver everything that whoever that client is. So there are sometimes great synergy and like being, I use the word additive, but complement is another word where someone can provide some aspects so that way, because you're not a big consulting firm that you can actually, rarely can you do what I call end-to-end, strategy and execution. But if someone can actually quote, partner with you to deliver some shared outcomes that aligns with the goals, and you really trust that person because the messaging is aligned with your own morals and goals and values, I am all for it. So I just wanted to make sure that person has a definition in mind when that person asks about the word partnership. There's a legal partnership, there's a friendship, collaborator, support person kind of thing, and then there's synergy and complementary services. To me, all those are variation of partnership.
That is wonderful and a very important thing. Define. Our next question, I will actually start with you, Dr. Doan, just because you mentioned price based on outcome rather than effort. Our next question is, how do you charge for your services? Do you use hourly, a sliding scale, project-based fee structure? And I'll ask this to everyone as well.
That's another great question. Oh my God, I wish I could just do a seminar because I think my other colleagues will probably say the same thing. It's all of the above, because there may be a menu of options, there may be a type of service that lend itself to time and material, to a fixed rate, to a case rate, I don't want to get into all the legality or just the different arrangement. But in general, when I mentioned based on outcomes, it helps you to think about from the lens of the client, if I will, because what they see as value is not necessarily like the effort. No one really cares how much effort that you put in, frankly. What they care about is, are you able to achieve the goals that they have set out? Are the expectation clearly outlined in the statement of work and what they actually get, but also they meaning it could mean their employees, it could mean their leaders, it could be their stakeholders. So when I turn it around is how much is this worth for them? Of course, I'm just talking kind of conversationally. I think from a lens of the client, what's valuable. So I'm going to give you something very simple. Dr. Smith shared about sharing story. I share a lot of story. If your story is so unique and it's so powerful and the message is just hit home and your delivery is phenomenal, the effort of me doing that kind of story or presentation or whatever that speech or panel discussion, whatever it is, the effort may not be a lot, but what you have is such a unique product, if you will, and the client gets a lot of value out of that. I might charge a lot more than something else. If I'm trying out what I call a different type of product or service, I'm just using that loosely, that I haven't done before, I might say, you know what, even though I'm putting in a lot of effort, it's not something I don't know is going to be that valuable. So I might just kind of like, decrease the cost a little bit. And you have to do research. Everyone knows if you're going to be in consulting, just even as the biggest of consulting, you have to do your market analysis. You have to really understand the trends. How valuable is that in your community, whether it's local or virtual? What does the competitors look like? What can someone else do that might be less expensive, but you don't want to always think about just price, because there are many criteria in whatever service or product that you're offering that you might want to think about how they define what's value, and it's not always price. So I'm being generic, but I think that hopefully gives you to start thinking of many ways to approach the pricing question.
I see your head shaking, Dr. Smith. Is there anything you would like to add? I feel like you agree.
Yes, yeah, I do agree. Dr. Doan did a great job of explaining that. And just to kind of add to that and supplement a little bit, for me, as an example, when as a leadership coach and cultural transformation, organizations are bringing me in to solve problems. The bigger problem you can solve, the more you get paid and the more value they find in you. So to Dr. Doan's point, there is kind of a market average, right? Industry average of what you get paid. However, based on your background, your experience, the value you bring, the problems you solve will allow you to kind of decide whether you can charge more for the value, right? Or you should charge less. And then also for me as a coach, it's kind of a tiered pricing too. So when I coach a CEO, it's a little bit more involved and takes a little bit more time than it would, a new supervisor or a vice president. So then you also have that differentiator too. But I think that's the biggest problem, the biggest point to recap on what Dr. Doan said. The bigger problem you can solve, the more you'll get paid for the value you provide.
Wonderful. Dr. Trinkle, would you like to add?
I certainly agree with everything, including the menu options. I would also remind people, in addition to the research, to think about your own knowledge. That is certainly something that's important, and it's important that you value it enough for the client, and to think about what type of long-term relationship you want with the client, because that may affect your opportunities for pricing, and that menu may look a little longer or a little bit different. A long time ago, before I was a consultant, someone once said, it's consulting, it's not a job, it's an annuity. So I think to not undervalue the possible long-term relationship is also important in pricing. So you're paid often for what you know, not what you're doing in certain situations. So not to undervalue yourself. Thank you.
Wonderful. Our next question is, how do you decide on your industry when you have multiple areas of expertise and would like to consult for all of them? Now, Dr. Dawn, I know you mentioned reflect, so I'm going to highlight reflect, but I'll pass it to you just to add on anything additional that you would like to say.
I love that this person has a bigger toolkit to work off of. I'm like, bravo. First of all, bravo. Celebrate all of the above, because you are a unique individual with your own value differentiate that you come inherently from your lived experience. So tap into that. There are times when you may not know, maybe serendipitously, that you have a conversation with a client and like you're like, oh my gosh, I also have X, or I'm hearing that. Like Dr. Smith, I don't know Dr. Smith well, but just his presentation, introduction, working in the serving 25 years, in the armed forces, that gives credibility, but also like there's an assumption of the discipline that he went through, but also there's a respect there. And if you work for a government or anything, that's just an example. If you are maybe a first generation college graduate, maybe that's something to celebrate. If you're a female leader from a marginalized community, celebrate that. It could be anything and everything. That's what I mean by what is your value or the differentiator that you bring. Do not undersell. I think Dr. Trinkle said that. But how do you package together that is not just talking about I've done this, 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 this. It's like you have to have a story. What is like your overall story? And a part of that is listening, like actively listening to the client and the needs and asking the right questions. And then, pull in all those experiences, because I truly believe in fate, FATE, meaning that every single journey that I've been on, I felt like I looked back and said, why did I do that job? Why did I have that role? It was almost like you might not know why you are on a specific journey that you're on, whether it's professional, academic, or personal. But I promise you, looking back and taking a time to really reflect, everything kind of makes sense. So lean on your intuition. I know I'm very philosophical when I say this. Your question is, how do I choose? Let the universe kind of take its toll and let you just kind of navigate through that. Maybe you are meant to lean on or go on this path or journey, but then also lean on data. Data is also important too. What is the market in need of? What are we challenged with from a macroeconomic level? What is it that you have that seem to be so relevant? So those are the things, or not relevant. So those are the things that you have to kind of, what I call, triangulate all the data, because data drives decision in consulting, DDD. So all those, I would say, lean on everything that you have. And that's what makes you so unique.
Excellent. Dr. Mike, would you like to add?
Yeah, sure would. So that was very, very well said. And something that I would just add to that is, just really don't get in the headspace of minimizing or devaluing yourself or what you bring to the table. And, Dr. Trinkle touched on that earlier. And sometimes when you're figuring this out, it could be a puzzle, right? I know for me, going through the military and then working in Berkshire Hathaway, I was on both sides at times of what I perceived to be a good leader, good culture, bad culture. So the more I started studying that and the lessons I learned, to Dr. Doan's point, every single journey I've been on, when I look back, has given me a relatable point to a client that I'm working with or talking to right through my story. So those experiences, right, those impact moments in our life are things that tie us all together as humans. It may not be the exact same experience, but it could be similar. And that emotional thread is what ties us together and makes the connection. So going back to the leadership and culture, the more I studied it, I didn't decide on one or the other, because they integrate, they feed off of each other. Leadership and culture are two sides of the same coin, and one without the other could seriously impact success or failure. So again, that's kind of the lens I viewed it through, is what can I do to holistically make the biggest impact within the organization? And I landed on, kind of combining those two things, again, based on experience, my research, and the path that I was on.
Dr. Trinkle, would you like to add as well?
We are so lucky to have this panel. There's so many great examples: fate and practicality and data-driven information, and also just the passion and the heart of things. So the person who asked the question, they are very fortunate, and hopefully they'll lean into that and think perhaps about the one thing that they don't want to give up, or that one industry that crosses perhaps into all of their different areas of expertise and experience. And I do believe fate has a way of appearing. So we're going to send some good wishes out in the universe that they find the right path for them in this amazing field of being a consultant.
That is absolutely wonderful. And I just want to check, Dina, do you mind if we ask just one more question? I know we're pushing at time, but I think this is a really great question.
Absolutely, Kayla. And thank you for everyone to staying on a few minutes over the allocated time. We have such an incredible discussion here. So yes, Let's go with one more question.
Perfect. So this question is about clientele. We've gotten several of those. How do you attract them? What resources are you using? Everyone wants to know. I'll start with you, Dr. Smith.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the question. That is really a good question and quite a concern when you first get started. So, what I did, and I don't know what my colleagues will say, but when I first started, once I landed on what it was I wanted to do, who and how I wanted to serve, is again, I found out what local organizations were here in the area. So like the Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors. I went there, I just printed off some hard copies of my little bio, my services, kind of my why, and I went door knocking, right? The Chamber of Commerce, I heard, right? I joined that and started networking there. But then probably one of the smartest things I did, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but knowing my background and my connection with the military, understanding that language and the ops tempo and the family issues and deployments and all of that kind of stuff, I went back to as many military bases as I could, and I knew the rank structure, so I knew the right person to talk about delivering my message to the troops and to the leaders. So again, leveraging your background, where you have your experience and kind of what you know, coupled with, for me, just venturing out to those new networks and just introducing myself, right? And that's probably the two places that got me the biggest bang for my buck right out of the gate.
Excellent. Dr. Trinkle, would you like to add?
I guess I would just add the specialization of things. And so leaning into industry articles and opportunities to share your voice in a specialized way can be really helpful. And also maybe volunteering in an industry that you want to expand upon. That is a way to not only expose yourself to different organizations that you may, or businesses that you may want to lean into, or fields, hunger, homelessness, but it also gives you an opportunity for some visibility, to network, and to really talk to people, build those relationships. That is something that is really critical, and I echo that with my other colleagues, the importance of the relationship, genuine, and just those real opportunities to connect with people for a shared goal.
Excellent. Dr. Dawn, it is now to you.
Sure. I'm going to bring up personal brand again. If you really want to do consulting, like start now with your LinkedIn profile. If I were to read and review any one of your profiles, is there a clear message of what it is that you bring? I would say that is a great place. You now can start your LinkedIn blog. I'm actually going to launch mine. I was just waiting for 2 podcasts that I just finished, so I'm able to share that when I'm allowed to share some of that. The other thing is thought leadership, either not just the blog, but actually presenting at speaking engagement that you may not get paid, but your message and your word and your brand is out there. So be very selective, because hopefully you're being covered for travel. But I would say that that is also another way of really sharing your thought leadership, in any way, in every way, different channel. I would say ask people who you already know that might know something. So going back to kind of your network again. I love the volunteering opportunity and serving a nonprofit board, because if that has relevance to what you do, that gives credibility, but then allow you to have another set of network that they can mark, especially if you're working in a nonprofit. I would say there's not much more besides, you can actually think about relationships that but not just that. People always looking for, like, for example, Dr. Smith is talking, or the brand is really about leadership and culture. What if they want someone who is from a different demographics? And let's say we partner together in some way. I'm using that word partner loosely. It's like they just want someone who's from an Asian community. I'm making that up. So we can give and take and do a lot of things. And I would return say they need someone who have like really strong either nonprofit experience with Dr. Trinkle or in the government space, whatever. So those are the things that you have to, if you don't share your brand broadly, then they don't know about you. I also ask for, and beg sometimes for testimonials and make that visible somehow. If there's a little quotation or is word of mouth is basically what it is. So many different ways. I wouldn't say it's easy, but usually people don't get into consulting until they kind of understand, at least they have a handful of potential clients before they make that leap of kind of letting go of the full-time job. So yeah. And it needs to be sustained. It needs to be refreshed and never be complacent. So it's a lot of work. Yeah.
What excellent information. This was excellent. And I do just want to let everyone know, I know you got a lot of information, but I saw some comments in the chat. Yes, this session is being recorded. Yes, you will receive an email with this recording link. So I know this is great information, but I wanted to point that out. I'll turn it back over to you, Dina.
Thank you, Kayla, and thank you so much, panelists. And for those of you who are interested in continuing to learn more about consulting opportunities, we have this amazing blog story that we published in October of 2025. And it is featuring Alumni Ambassador Dr. Rana El-Kawand. And she lives in Beirut, Lebanon, and has worked for the United Nations and its agencies for over 12 years. In this blog article, she shares her insights and practical strategies for identifying and applying for consulting opportunities at the UN. So if you're interested and would like to read the full article, please refer to the direct link to her story that is provided in your handouts section of Big Marker, your webinar platform. And also our blog includes many other articles featuring alumni ambassadors, and you see some familiar faces here. Dr. Doan and Dr. Smith have both contributed articles as part of the Alumni Ambassador series, and we have many more featured here and continue to capture the expertise of our talented alumni community through these engaging blog stories. So please read the Career Planning and Development blog, and there is a link to the blog in your handouts. I'd also like to highlight our prior Alumni Ambassador panel webinars. If you're in an active job search or if you're interested in higher ed teaching careers, we invite you to watch How to Stand Out as a Job Candidate and Landing Your First Higher Ed Teaching Opportunity. Both webinars, the links to these programs are provided in your handouts. And also another way to tap into the knowledge and expertise of Walden's huge alumni community is by using Ask Alums. And Ask Alums is a networking platform where Walden students or graduates can use it as well, can ask career-related questions and receive advice from Walden alumni and members of the alumni community. So after submitting a question, the Ask Alums platform tries to match you with a Walden alum who's able and willing to respond to your question. So definitely be thoughtful in submitting your question. But whether you're a student or already graduated, we do invite you to take a few minutes after the session and try out Ask Alums to see how it works. And then also, finally, I do want to mention that we have many more resources available on the Career Planning and Development website. We have resources for career exploration, for job searching, networking, interviewing. There's access to our Skills First career management system, where you can build resumes, cover letters, career portfolios, and even practice your interview skills. So visit our website at careercenter.waldenu.edu. You do need to log in with your Walden credentials, But if you're an alum who no longer has access to your Walden email or password, or simply forgot what your password was, or even your email address, please email support@mail.waldenu.edu to reactivate your account and use all of the incredible resources that are available to you as a member of the Walden community. And then to conclude the program, we invite you to continue engaging in your career development. Visit our website, schedule a one-on-one career advising appointment. I did notice that in the chat there were questions, and then the Q&A as well, very specialized questions. And if you really want some one-on-one support and some advice and feedback, schedule a one-on-one career advising appointment from our website. You can also email us with short questions, follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and read articles and success stories on the blog, including, of course, the articles that were submitted by Walden Alumni Ambassadors. And we would love your feedback on today's program. As Kayla mentioned, please take a moment to complete the survey. There will be a survey that will pop up on your screen in just a moment here. And also don't forget to download all of the materials in the handouts, including the PowerPoint slides and links. And with that, I'd like to thank our amazing alumni ambassador panel, Drs. Smith, Trinkle, and Doan. If you'd like to connect with them, please visit LinkedIn, and you can see their LinkedIn URLs are there, so you can connect with them that way. And I also want to send a huge thank you to the manager of the Alumni Ambassador Program, Mr. Ulysses Wilcox, and also to the entire Alumni Ambassador Network, who are a tremendous group of mentors, thought leaders, and Walden University advocates. So it's an incredible group. I know all of you are part of the Alumni Ambassadors and are there to really support students and graduates in their success. And of course, we couldn't have hosted this program without you, Kayla Willis from the Office of Academic Affairs. Thank you, Kayla, as always. And thank you to the audience for your engagement and insightful questions. Best wishes to all in pursuing consulting work and applying your knowledge and skills to help organizations, communities, and individuals. And with that, have a wonderful evening, everyone.